public outcry for people who want a better planet.
And there are powers that be that let the people panic.
Look at the Gulf of Japan, could they have really planned it? Heading for the iceberg like the Titanic.
Atlantic mystery, Atlantis white from history. The truth about the pyramids in ancient Mayan prophecy.
Space Odyssey, look into the anomalies, and you will find suppression of free energy technology. A false democracy born out of a monopoly. Sacred knowledge robbery, like the towers they toppling.
No stopping free.
J-Brain, Vito C.
Coming from the enemy.
Free energy. The oil's running dry, our money's burning out.
Solar panels on the roof of the White House.
Hey, we bringing on some real change.
Water catchment system.
We collecting rain.
Time to gather round. The moment's now. I want it all turn out. And from the crowd, be the one who's the meditation. It's time for free energy. Time for free energy.
Nikola Tesla perceived the earth as a conductor of acoustical resonance, and still his presence lives in the heart of visionary invention. Over 5,000 patents censored. Researching zero-point energy, trying to get through delirium. The unified field theory of Nassim Harriman, and every day we carry in the burden of our past. Water fuel cars, we no longer need the gas.
So many solutions right here in your face. Raw earth energy, create what rejuvenates. Green walls and green roofs, grow plants on everything. Magnetic movements, don't need gas for anything. Space rockets, doing our own research, paying out of pocket. Bike-powered stages, you pedal in our rocket. Fully access to techie knowledge. Green power over big profit. You can't stop it.
Ever think what the wars are fought for? Ever dream that the world could be more? I spend my life by us, one chance to do it together. Ever think what the wars are fought for? Ever dream that the world could be more? I spend my life by now, one day we could do it together.
The Renaissance, third industrial revolution. Invention is the language of a worldwide solution. The body electromagnetic, plasma arc reactive, stubble field, Kautsky frost. Free the knowledge lost. Some people wait for 2012 to watch the Earth shift, but in New Mexico they out there building Earthships. We got the language wrong, I got a new twist. The lifting of the veil, that's the true apocalypse. Some see free energy as the enemy, but my genetic memory remembering that could never be. Thoughts float in the anti-gravity. A cubic foot of space can fuel the whole world annually. You can choose to love or hate, revolt or maybe meditate. And every day we demonstrate so we can finally get it straight. Peace worldwide is the anthem that we celebrate. Free energy like the end of the movie Saint.
Time to gather round. The moment's now. I want it all turn out. And from the crowd, be the one who's the meditation. It's time for free energy. Time for free energy. Time for free energy. Time for free energy.
Welcome back to the 100th Monkey Radio Show with Tom and Ramon and our special guests, Mark and Peter. If you, hopefully you listened to the first hour first, so you know what's going on. And we're going to get back into a little bit of the Joe cell, move into the rain-making machines, the water cleaning.
Some magnetics. So I want to talk about some magnetics because there's something there that is a huge key for our future, I think. So.
Yeah, and also hopefully if Peter can give me a space ride to a different planet.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll get there eventually. So, What I would kind of like to know is if somebody wanted to build themselves a Joe cell, where do they start?
Lift up the hood of the vehicle, see how much room is directly around the engine that's existing. Make sure that they're free and clear of any of the hoses associated with their air conditioning. I generally try to fit a cell which is approximately 4 inches in diameter in the old measurements and 12 inches in height. So a 4-inch tube that has twin bung ends. I use a rubber bung that's used in the milk industry as a vacuum type tube. And I drill holes in that to allow for water to be shown as a level. I also drill a hole in it to support the center cathode and the two neutrals that I normally use. So these are inside tubes that fit on top or around each other. The first tube that's in the center is generally referred to as a cathode. It's negatively charged, goes to the negative side of the battery. And you always run two physical wires to the negative. Even though it appears that there's only one field from a battery, there is a reflective wave. So for every action, there's an equal and opposite. And you do need to have two wires running to both the positive and the negatives. The neutrals we support in a rubber containment or in a squashed rubber press where you just distort the rubber enough to support the neutral tubings, which are between the positive and the negative. We generally just charge the water for about 3 minutes with negative on first, and then run the positive, which is the electrical frequency or connection is made to the inside of that outside tube. So it's got to be the positive's got to actually reach to the inside edge of the outer tube. The way in which that's done, we can tag it, or we can do all sorts of things and push electrical fittings onto the top of it, or drill it, or whatever you want. You can add another bolt to it. You just have to be aware that electrically there's, even though you've got positive on, you've also got an oxide layer on your steel, which will give you a positive negative just on the outer edge. So it's to encourage direct ground connection to positive and a direct ground connection to negative. Ground is just making sure that there's no washers or any other material put in place to stop it from doing a metal-to-metal contact. So they're just some of the things that we do. We use water that's either come from a natural stream, well water, or rainwater. Rainwater, if it's run across the ground, is okay. If it's just been stored in a tank, is generally not enough bite or not enough memories in the water from the ground. I'm not sure how to describe it. It's sort of, you've nearly got to be psychically connected to the water as an empath, just as a term, so that it becomes twin to you. You do have a symbiotic relationship with the water. The water will do what you intend it to do. So that's part and parcel of getting the cells to work, is to have the right intention around you.
Right.
Because you are connected to that cell.
It's amazing
by
how
mind.
It's amazing how consciousness plays such a key role in all these old technologies that are coming back to the surface now.
Yeah. Well, we are. I think Dr. Walter Russell is probably the one that I'd refer a lot of people back to. Is that everything is mind. and that's everything that you solidly see is really just a perception of your mind. Because it's all matter that's moving, if we look at it under a 10,000 power microscope, it's all just in vibration, and we don't even know how the cells are holding together. You know, it's just magnetics in cells and all sorts of things, which will probably lead me into magnetics. But looking at what we're doing, we become more and more active. The more mind clear you are, in other words, you're not rampantly thinking about things, you know, or worrying about, you know, where am I going to get the money to pay that bill or whatever. If you're just focusing on having a good time with your engine and, you know, running it, it tends to run even better.
Right.
If that makes sense, huh?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So if any of you guys out there listening are really interested in making your own Joe cell, I would start by going to weathercreation.com and start doing some research there. He's got links and there's all sorts of pathways from there that'll take you to, from what I can tell, everything you need to know about it. And
yeah, Tom, the place where most of this information has been being moderated by Peter, and where Peter's really been interacting with hundreds of people around the world for quite a number of years, is over in the, if you go on the right side on the website, there's a link out to the Yahoo groups, and that's got Joe Cell 2 Yahoo groups, or whatever it's called. The link is on the right side. Peter, what's that called? What's the name of
the PES Network Wiki? That one?
No, it's a Yahoo groups, and it's called Joe Cells 2. Just the letter 2.
Oh, I see it there. Okay.
And yeah, that covers a lot of what we've done over the years. There's lots of photos. Because we're visual people like to see photos. I've got lots of different types of cells in amongst the Inventor photo folder. And you're very welcome to have a look at all of those and, you know, ask questions on the group. And sometimes I actually get to answer some of that, and sometimes I'm just too busy doing other stuff. But it's just lots of fun.
Okay, well, it's all there, guys. So let's switch gears now and let's go into the weather modification thing. I mean, there's wow, what an undiscussed field.
Tom,
Before we go
why
into
would you want to go into weather?
Before we go into that, I just wanted to mention two quick stories, and one involves Tom. We went to a place called Iseti, and there were so many chemtrails, and it was really cloudy. And to make a long story short, we gathered the group together, and we just put our focus, and we cleared like a circular area where we were at of clear sky. And that's just our consciousness, so.
Yep.
To set the stage. Well,
yeah, I did that too when we were had a group meeting at my house, and a friend of mine, he does a lot of stargazing, and he teaches people about, you know, how to look at the skies. We had total cloud cover all afternoon, most of the day and all afternoon, and going on into the evening. It's completely cloud cover, and he just nonchalantly said, well, let's go outside and see what happens, and take a flashlight. And he took his little laser pointer, and we went and walked up on the hill, and I was just laughing. I was thinking, what are we doing this for? Why don't we just have a coffee and give the kids some hot chocolate and go to bed? You know, this is crazy. He just started looking up, and we all started looking up, and in a few minutes, I was a couple of spots, and then I opened it right up. We opened up the whole sky, a huge swath of the sky, and just were looking at everything. And he just kind of laughed. He said, well, this is how it works. You know, we just have to focus on it and, you know, clear it up. He said it happens every time, and, you know, he just does it.
Yeah. So, Peter, how did you get into making rain?
Good question. I'd been studying agricultural engineering. Agricultural engineering, it indicated in Australia, was the second driest planet, land mass on the planet, and the only drier place was Antarctica. And therefore Australia really needed to come to grips with all of the water that was on it, around it, and just to be able to farm and maintain a lifestyle for farmers and supply food for Asia for, the oncoming generations. And Australia looked like if we could get water to it or on it, then it would be probably one of the smartest continents left. We had little, populations apart from sitting on the coastal fringe, and a couple of main highways running across Australia, north and south, and a few towns dotted in between. There's 21 million people, or maybe more, living here now. But it's an exciting place. There's lots of room to move and grow. But the coastal fringe has been where a lot of the population has ended up being. The avenue for long periods of drought was high on the agenda. That, Australia, there was no guaranteed rainfall events apart from wet and dry in the northern part of Australia. And there it was too wet to farm a lot unless you could come up with crops that, could handle the amount of water that was falling. In some of our areas were probably the highest rainfall in the world, apart from some Amazon area, but that's sort of in question. But there were, like meters or yards of rain is how they measured it, how many yards of rain they got. Wow. I got involved in weather in that I'd been in the Bureau of Meteorology, which is our government department for recording rainfall and rainfall and wind events, and being able to make predictions on what weather was doing. And I'd been in the office in the Northern Territory in Darwin, and I'd actually been just a weather plotter in those days. So I'd have to decode all the weather coming in from different stations that were set up around the world and plot this onto a map. And then the forecaster would look at it and draw a couple of squiggly lines on it and call that a low, call that a high, and, that's what it was going to do. So I'd been involved in, getting and plotting all this data right around the world. Or what we actually had was 1/4 quadrant of the Earth that we recorded all the data for and made it so that, airlines could travel and know which way the relevant winds were, all sorts of stuff. So I was excited to be involved in anything that could possibly make rain. And being involved with the Inventors Association for a number of years, I'd also invented, different things. So I met, as my job as a publicity officer for the Inventors Association, I met a gentleman by the name of Jack Toyer. And Jack at that stage was in his late 70s. And he was a real character. He'd been a naval architect during the war, and he'd built boats at Gladstone and launched them off the beach and done all sorts of strange and wonderful things. He'd made some of the first surfboards in Australia. From the Hawaiian king had come to Australia at some stage, and Jack had seen some of these boards and ended up fiberglassing, or in the early days they were using some resins or whatever. And he made paddle boards and all sorts of things. Very, very creative. He happened to be out at sea during the 60s, and his radio was often interrupted with the storms building up about 3 o'clock in the afternoon in tropical area, where you can actually hear the lightning crackling in your radio. And therefore he decided just to investigate that a bit further and see if he could make a device that would create the same sort of crackling, and whether that was, like a static build-up type machine. And so he experimented with that for a while. He used reflective light from the sun, so he had mirrors. I reckon he had a little bit of smoke somewhere as well, so you had smoke and mirrors. But the fun part was that he introduced magnets, and so he had these magnetic vortices, spiraling heated air that was electrostatically charged. And I think he had some pretty good successes in that every time he'd ring me to say that he was now going to turn the machine on, I'd then ring the radio or ring the newspapers and, state to them that we're, old Jack's turning his machine on, ha, 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 you're going to get wet, And we were pretty accurate. We were more than pretty accurate. In fact, we're still 100% accurate. And this was back in 1985 when I first met Jack. So what a wonderful man. And I really knocked him around when it came to this meeting, because I'd been playing around with microwaves and I'd been taking moisture out of products, plus my background being involved with the Bureau of Meteorology. And I was ready to have Jack on toast. Anyway, he stood up and he handled every question that I hit him with, and they were all affirmative. I'd asked him about, that for you to have a rainmaker, you'd need to have this on it. Yeah, I've got that. Okay, well, then you'd also need to have this on it. Yes, I've got that. And I said, well, you'd also need to be operating it in this frequency. And he's looking at me. He said, have you seen this? I said, no, I don't need to see it, but if you've got all those things, you could possibly have what is referred to as a rainmaker. Well, there were 35 inventors in that hall who got up and cheered, and old Jack had tears in his eyes. It was the first time I think anybody really believed in him. His local family and friends or whatever had all sort of been laughing at him, for attempting to make rain. After all, it's just God's job. And you're not allowed to take God's job away. But it was just really, really exciting. So Jack offered me the machine. He said, well, you know a fair bit about it. What about you get involved with it? I said, no, it's your machine, Jack. You go with it. But on his death, the family said to me for me to be involved with it. I didn't want to own it personally, and I tried to put it then into the hands of the Arid Lands Research Foundation. This is back in 1992, somewhere in that vicinity. And that's where I had the intended chairperson for the Arid Lands Research Foundation was Professor Ron Davis. And that's how he and I were involved. And then when the Joe Cell all happened in 92, he was involved in all of that as well. So, there was a number of other products that I'd played with the Arid Lands Research Foundation when Dr. Rod Leeson was alive. What a lovely man. He was, a real scientist who was just tickled to death with what we were able to do with Jack's machine. And I then found over time, I actually found out in Christmas 2007 that Walter Russell had written about it in the very early years, I think in 1926. Then he referred to it in his book, Atomic Suicide, in 1957 on exactly what we were doing. And that was the operator's manual for the Rainmaker. And, how is it that, Leo and Walter Russell were able to write about what we would be doing 50 years hence, which was just exciting to see what they said, that we would be able to control rain over desert or meadow and unwind cyclones or tornadoes and all sorts of things. So just absolutely exciting to be involved with this in an intuitive way and then to actually find the science of what it was that we were doing, that we weren't just mad, running around the bush, and that we were actually causing weather across large areas. And when I went to America, before I got there, I'd got a gentleman to build the machine for me and trial it and focus on making it rain, of course, where it won't rain generally, and that's in Death Valley. So it rained in Death Valley, and we got the phone call to come to America and see if we could help make it rain in Raleigh in North Carolina when it was really dry, and looking at having to evacuate, something like they're having to do down now in a Texas town. As I sent an article this morning, some Texas town, the lake's dried up, and they're actually shipping water from 20 mile away or something, several thousand gallons a day to this little community, whereas in actual fact we could be somewhere in America and fire the machine up and let it rain over them. Just amazing.
So what is the technology behind the machine? What are you actually doing with energy?
We're directing sunlight, charging that sunlight, electrostatically charging it, and electromagnetically spinning it. So we can put a contrary rotating field on a hurricane and unwind a hurricane. If I was in your tornado alley areas, I reckon we could unwind the severity of tornadoes and be very quick about doing it. We can form weather. Well, I've formed weather in Australia to fight bushfires within a couple of hours. So if we know there's your hurricane season, the Earth is what's doing the charging, electrostatically charging. So all you need to do is put an electro or a contrary rotating field up into the atmosphere, and it just unwinds it.
What kind of a spectrum are you able to radiate it at? I mean, how large of a field are you able to create?
Well, I can. How does one put it? I can operate the machine from several thousand miles away, and might be 20,000 miles from that location.
Wow.
And be right on target.
Oh, interesting.
And a target area might be 500 miles, 500 square miles. We can bring it down a lot smaller than that, just on the duration or intensity of what our intention is. We'd like to get paid, so it's,
Oh, absolutely.
We do it for nothing, but we still like to get paid because you can live a lot further by paying your bills than you can on fresh air at this stage.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
So we don't particularly want to give it to a government or a military or a whatever. We've been offered silly money, pieces of paper with billions of dollars written on it. But in actual fact, it would only cause us to become greedy and, worry about what we're going to do with money. We need to remain focused on what we're doing with the weather in a very sensible area.
Right.
I've got a friend in Phoenix, and he told me that it was really dry. I said, well, what about we turn it into a garden? And I operated from Phoenix for a couple of days. Lo and behold, it rained. 8 inches of rain in Phoenix. Now, come on. It gets 2 inches annually. It doesn't know what to do with 8 inches of rain, of course, but it was a lot of fun being involved in that, and then getting it to rain again and rain again, so that the desert blooms.
So do you have to bring the machine to the place, or can you do it from where you're at?
Well, for instance, I can pretty well. I reckon I can hit any place in America from America. I can. We've even had a look at making it snow. Well, we weren't actually making it snow at the time, but snow fall was an event that happened in Baghdad as a consequence of what we were doing, and they stopped fighting. That was good. We'd fired on the 8th of January 2008 into Tunisia to a little lake system just behind the city of Gabes. And then it rained from there all the way through Libya and Egypt and Saudi Arabia. And then on the third day, it actually snowed in Baghdad for the first time in living memory. So nobody had ever remembered it snowing in Baghdad. And they stopped fighting, which was, a day of peace. God came to town. So that was wonderful. Other areas, we've been involved in, our intention is to unwind a cyclone or a tornado or a hurricane. The last hurricane that was running up the coast of the US, they indicated it was going to go to a Category 5, and they were lucky to get it to record a tropical low at the end. But there was a lot of water, but it didn't have anywhere near the intensity because we unwound it.
Very nice. Very nice.
It's amazing.
So it sounds to me like I feel like this technology. There's other uses that can be spun off of this in different ways. Have you focused it in any other directions?
Okay.
Yeah. We were looking at Squaw Valley. The last interview that I did, probably a fortnight ago, they were looking for snow, and lo and behold, they've had snow. Not that we did a full intention on it, but we were focusing on it, but we really wanted to be a paid event. There are industries that, forestry, for instance, that need to have rain on a fairly regular basis. They don't really want droughts affecting timber growth and rings. And if we were set up in such a way that we were over in California somewhere, we were set up in the middle of America and say on the East Coast, there would be, say 3 machines running. You could prevent a lot of hurricanes coming up through the Gulf area. You could still have them as rain events, but not with the intensity. As they wind up and gather speed, you can actually settle in beside them and pull them in one or different direction as it's required. It's just it's just time and money.
So I'd like to say a little bit. I'd like to tease Peter into talking about because I think it's a great question, Tom. That I'd like to tease Peter into talking a bit more about what can be done with pollution, air pollution, and water pollution using this charged rain. Because it's different than, I mean, a lot of people would be looking at, if they're like me, they would look at this initially and go like, okay, this sounds a lot like, I have a lot of negative connotations of working with weather modification, thinking of HAARP. But if you look at the balanced way that this is working with the water, we're actually working with water and with the being of water, and in a balanced way, and it's bringing the memory back to water of what it is and its true potential of, balancing things. And so, Peter, how about talking a little bit about how you can rein through polluted air and unpollute things and unpollute water, fill water aquifers with happy water and that sort of thing. That would be really great to go into that direction.
Oh, you're scary, man. Where would you get a machine that would do that? All right. Well, just to really focus, the tsunami that hit Japan, for instance, devastating as it is, the radioactive material is still well within the environment.
Oh yeah, it's in my backyard.
Yeah. Well, it's not only in your backyard, but it's also in you. And it's in everything. You can't see it, you can't taste it, but it's just going to kill you. it's just a friendly thing to have, and it's not like a rattlesnake that you can see it here. You've got to have your Geiger counters. You've got to have everything running to be able to pick up where it is. And what do you do when you've got it? Where do you go? What is it? So looking at what Russell said in the Atomic Suicide, that if we continue to use radioactive material, his indication was that we were basically suiciding. We were continuing to kill ourselves. I'm not going to disagree with him because I think he's right, but I think that he also left us the challenge in that we could disassociate or unwind radioactive particles. So the next phase of cleaning up radioactive polluted areas is to go in both not just in the atmosphere, but into the groundwater, into the soil, into the ocean. I've looked at a couple of different devices that I've utilized in charging the ocean water off Shiba in Japan, and then I ended up giving that device to the women who were there within a surfing community, and said to them, by operating this on a regular basis, I believe that'll help clean it up. I have no proof that that is the case. We still need to have it investigated and researched fully, but it was involved in, that was the intention, was to help clean it up. And water, if you like, through Dr. Emoto, if we pray and focus our intention, it does clean it up. I met Dr. Emoto while I was in Japan on 3 occasions. What a wonderful man. And I heard his prayer for the people of Japan, and all I can say is my heartfelt thanks went out to them, and I knew I had to go there and help. So I did a phone call to a friend of mine in California who donated the money for me to be able to go to America, from America back to Australia and then into Japan. And thank you very much, Morris. I gathered a couple of these water cells, magnetic water cells, to take with me, and lo and behold, I wasn't allowed to take them on the plane. They had too much magnetic strength and therefore might affect the flight direction of the aircraft, and I had to leave them back in Australia. It took a while to rebuild them in Japan. I was fortunate enough to have taken a young lady as an interpreter over there as well, who was absolutely fantastic, Yurika, who did a fantastic job in getting the parts that I needed, back together so that I could make up a couple of these devices. Just amazing. So I ended up giving Dr. Emoto the unit which to test and experiment with in Japan. He was trying to organize a meeting for me to meet one of the university professors, but that didn't end up happening. But I met some really wonderful people over there, people like Garrett Norris, who is an American but was living in Japan at the time as a student. Garrett, just an amazing character. It really got me excited and insisted, and he's well on the way to making things happen as well. So you meet lots of people when you get excited in this water realm and magnetic realm. They just come out of the woodwork, if you like, or out of the ether, and become more and more involved. I'd like to see Japan turn off all the power that's to do with anything to do with radiation, radioactive particles, and let's come up and give them the correct alternative, and let's hope that they get to see 4 generations without there being major genealogical disasters to the DNA.
Yeah.
That's the scary.
It's funny because it seems like Dr. Emoto's work is way more famous outside of Japan, because here most people don't know who he is.
Right. Okay, that's fascinating.
Yeah, of course, a lot of the foreigners know who he is, but a lot of the normal, everyday Japanese people don't know.
Yeah, I have a little bit of background on that water stuff, and I had well, it's not really appropriate here. I am, yeah, never mind.
Just get it off your chest, but don't say anything, man.
Just tell me to shut up. I'm not going to talk about that.
Just go to mute. Just amazing. All right, well, don't go there, Mark. That's good.
So,
okay.
I'm supposed to, I don't know when, but I'm supposed to be meeting up with Dr. Emoto sometime either in February, to have coffee with him. So I'll definitely.
Oh, you'll love it. Ramon,
I'll ask him about that.
Yeah, we'd like to get him on the show.
Yeah, because I'm actually with his interpreter. I've become friends with. We usually have like a small meeting, and some of them listen to the show where we discuss all these things. So I'll definitely bring it up to her next time I see her. But let's go to Bangladesh and.
Ooh, Dhaka.
What
an amazing place.
With some of the experience that you guys had there, and the stuff you were doing there.
Mark really loves the Ganges. He thinks it's got an aroma all of its own.
Yeah, man. Oh, look, it's a pretty special place, isn't it? I mean, it's a complex story. I mean, this planet, we've got this complex story of people who have a love of controlling people, and then we have a large amount of people who are some who really are coming with a different heart space and have a potential to really change the world in a very big way. We probably got to have a bit of a taste of both worlds in that experience. But looking at the river, this is what I experienced. I'll just say what I experienced a little bit to tease this out. One of the things that happened was that we were working with a charging cell, and that's a whole really complex subject. It's simple, and yet it's not easy to really grasp what's going on. It's kind of an experiential thing to witness what happens, to really live with water as it runs through its paces. If you really are there, some things happen that you don't really know what's going on, and they're a little bit outside the box. But we took some water out of this river that's completely dead. It's, for all intents and purposes, wiped out by pollution from many, many sources of pollution. The water, we took some water that it looks black. When you look down into the river sides are totally covered in rubbish or trash, depending on where you're from. And it really is sad to see. There's no real feeling of like, oh, this is just going to pick up somewhere along the lines. It just looks trashed. And you feel like you're in a sludge of, like the smell of the water is extremely rough. I got really sick from the food. Well, there was something that happened with the food. I ended up getting quite sick and stayed home when they first went, and they got a sample of water. And when they came back to invite me out of my day of visiting, of holding the bed down and making sure the toilet was still there, and so I come out of this stupor, and these guys do invite me into the world of the living, say, here, have a smell of this, and I was gonna puke, man. I was supposed to pour this water from the jug into the charging cell, and I was ready to really just lose it. And then I had to actually physically walk away, get a breath of air, and go in and do this while I was my breath in order to not throw up. So we put it in there, and we started charging this cell. Peter and I really tuned in, and for us it was I don't know about Peter. I mean, he's a bit of a rogue, but I felt like this was a fairly serious visit to the water, and I felt like there was something really sad happening there. So it was fairly heavy on my soul, and I started watching these Peter Pumpkin Eater charging this water, and it was really within minutes that water went from being totally carrying so much burden to being like and it just went and it dropped all this pollution down to the bottom of it, and it didn't any longer stink the way it was. I could smell it. It all of the sludge came to the surface and went to the bottom. So it wasn't completely clean, mind you. It needed a lot more to go before it was really clean. But Peter's worked around water a lot in this way, and he intuitively felt that it needed to rest, and we were pushing it too hard and burning it, and that it needed to just have a rest. We did a half charge. It totally dropped a ton of stuff. And meanwhile, the guy we're working with is like, where's the generator? Where's the generator? So is this going to work? And I'm just going like, would you shut up? Like, this is way beyond, like, where's the generator? This is serious. So we ended up seeing this water really make some serious transformations, and tried to take it back in and putting it in a charge cell. I mean, we fired it off. There's a huge story here, like lighting the gas off on this. We ended up with a big implosion once where it did a big implosion, blew the water to the ceiling, and there's a lot there. I mean, there's a big story here, guys. Like, there are new elements working here. You're talking about really what you're tapping into here is the magic of water, Walter Russell's world, and really this is alchemy, and working with the genie in the bottle, and working with God, working through water, the source of creation, working through water. And I'm just trying to tease this story out a little bit, but I kind of can't help myself, but I have to say something, because there's hopefully, just really hoping that there's somebody out there who can work with us in a little more proactive way, because Peter needs to get this story out, what he can do. He's fairly humble in some ways, and he needs to be working with somebody who can actually do stuff. We get a lot of promises. Everybody comes and, oh yeah, you're going to do this, $1 billion and millions of dollars and whatever, but he's still stuck with trying to pay the bills this month, and that's ridiculous, because there's a lot of good work to be doing here, and we can clean up the planet in a really big way. And there are other people. Peter's not the only one working on this kind of stuff. I'm aware of technology look, I'll just say this, because this is totally different guy, different time. But I was privy to this guy by the name of Spank. Spank in, I think it was Austria. I'd have to really look into details of Germany or Austria or Hungary, or I'm really sorry, but I'm not sure exactly where he's from. But my friend, I became very good friends with a professor of mine out of Sydney at Parsifal College, who worked with Spank on water. And my friend's he died this year recently, about a month ago. He did many photographs. He was working with photographs of Spank, taking snapshots of how water behaves when it's polluted and when it's clean, when it's got different energy, when you're sending it love, when you're sending it hate, when you're sending it different energy of feelings. Now, this was not Emoto. This was somebody else. This was totally separate from Emoto. my friend then later became aware of Emoto's work, and he approached Emoto. They did some work together. I have access to hundreds of slides of water photographs on these disc plates. I've been really wanting, one of my pet projects that I wanted to get out there for a while now has been to get this stuff on the internet, digitize it. It's all just plates. It's in storage, you know, it's got, another guy has it so I can get access to it. I would love to have somebody help me with funding that, you know, just funding my time to get that all digitized and on the internet. To have the ability to do it, I just need money to cover my time so that I can do this kind of work. Somebody needs to do this work because there's some amazing things to be learned. There's this guy, okay, so just a teaser. This guy took oloids, the shape of an oloid, O-L-O-I-D, which you need to just look it up. I mean, people need to do the research if they want to look into this or contact me. I'd be happy to talk about it in more detail, but I'd rather get back to Peter. But I just want to tease this out because this is related to Peter's work. But Peter's not the only guy doing this stuff. I'm aware of other people, and there are so many people who need to be focused on not just the fear and doom and gloom of what, you know, all of the crap that's going on, but let's get people funded who can do some positive change. So this guy with the oloids, back in back in the 50s or 60s. I'm not sure exactly when. I could probably drill it down. My friend's dead now, so I'm not sure. It'd be hard to dial him in, but I could probably get access to the dates. The company, he started working with changing water through the use of oloids. He made a propulsion system on boats. I know exactly how it works. I would love to work with somebody to reproduce this propulsion. But he created a patent where he could put this drive, instead of using a propeller, he made an oloid drive which basically massaged water to the point where it brought life back to it. It brought etheric life back into water. And what happened, the thing that happened with that was it brought life back into these dead lakes. Ultimately, Schwenk was working in a little septic treatment facility where he was running this little boat that my friend watched cruising around in circles around in this sludge pond with septic, just testing it out and playing around with this idea. He was able to treat sewage to the point where it could be released into streams and bring back life back into it, and it had actually reabsorbed all of the pollution back. Now Peter can tell you about turning septic water back into drinking water, which is, you know, just really gross. And if you ask me, that's real evidence of really bad Aussie humor. But back to Schwenk. So Schwenk goes and these oloids. He gets contracted to put oloids on this river system and in the lake system where they had, he got contracted to put oloid drives on ferries. They brought these river systems and this river system and lake system they were totally nova, totally killed, zero life in them, and they brought them back to life using these boats just cruising around with ferries, cruising around on the water. So I'm just like, I understood it, I got it. It's been living with me since 1994. I've got this huge passion to bring this back out. Now, where did that go? This guy, Schwenk, was paid off for his patent. His patent was bought by a company that I think was associated with an oil company. They said, we've got the money to bring this out in a big way. They told him all the right things that he wanted to hear. You know, we can bring this technology out into the world like you couldn't, you know, we'll bring it out and we'll change the world for a better place. He sold the technology to them. Sure enough, they shelved the damn technology and it's nowhere to be found anymore. So what I'm saying is, see, this is Peter. Peter comes in with this, Peter and Joe, they say, we will not patent technology. And I'm working with other people who say the same things. They will not patent it. The reason they patent it It's not because they don't want the technology to be put into public. It's exactly the opposite. If they patent it, it gets shelved, it gets bought off, or the Department of Defense comes in and they said this is a matter of national security, they shelve it. He's coming out saying, let's open source this. Let's get this technology out there. We can make good business off this. Just use it. Make good business, because people, not everybody wants to make this stuff. They just want to be able to buy it. You know, if they don't want a generator that, they don't want to make a generator. They want a generator that they can buy for $1,000, and then they don't have to be on the grid anymore. You know, and let's get real renewable energy out there. Let's change the water. Let's make the water so it can carry life again. You know, this is the kind of stuff that Peter himself can do. Like, he's a real guy. You know, he loves curry. If you want to get Peter.
Yeah, thanks. I just love that chili. Yeah.
I got to tell you guys this, okay? I got to tell you this story because this is so funny. So this is how we don't get mad. We get even. So I was at a point where I was feeling a little bit testy, and we were in Bangladesh, and we were in the middle of a lot of stuff. I was feeling really testy, and I know Peter was getting hit pretty hard by the curry, and then we were going along, and
it's the chili. The curry was fine.
Oh, the curry was delicious, but the chili was a bit severe. But I can handle it. Peter's a little weak on that side of things. So, but I said, Peter says, "How's this one, Mark?" And I was going like, actually, it doesn't. It seems okay. And then 5 minutes later, I'm going, actually, it's pretty rough, Peter. Sorry. And by then, it was done. He was done. He was cooked. But anyway, if anyone wants to help, all that they've got to do is provide good chili, hot curry, and maybe $2,000 or $3,000, and you can get Peter's attention.
Thanks, Mark. You're just such a pleasure to know.
Yeah. Let's get back to Peter, okay? Because I appreciate the little rant, soapbox, but let's get back to Peter because we've got him online.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, Peter, let's get a little bit into magnetics.
Oh, I still want to hear about the sewage plant stuff.
Okay.
What are you doing what technology or what have you developed that is able to turn sewage sludge back into drinking water?
Okay. What we're using is like a charging cell. A charging cell is very similar to the Joe cell. But there's a number of other plates. We generally run out to about 7 neutral plates or 8 neutral plates within the cell. We statically charge the water, or what we want the water to become if it's sewage. It will release all of its colloidal minerals and colloidal pathogens or giardias or whatever else is in there. It'll just drop it and flocculate that water immediately. You can then take, in the flow, you can cyclone the clean water away and separate that through normal settling ponds and that sort of thing. We've got a couple of agricultural units where we can run that water straight back through magnetic alignment and clean that water so that it is just pure drinking water. It comes out. Where the sludge goes, we don't know. It's like it's recombining it back into the water as the elements from which it's come. And that's pretty amazing. Recently I did it with some concrete samples. We actually increased, we took a 10-gallon bucket or a 5-gallon bucket, 20 litres, somewhere in that vicinity, away from a concrete slurry that had been dumped out of a concrete truck back at their works. And they allow this concrete, they've overwatered it so it doesn't settle. but the slurry then goes across 3 different ponds, and then they try to use that water back in a mix or a batch of concrete that it's going to be delivered, within sort of half an hour. The material is a landfill nightmare. They don't want it dumped. We have what we call the Environmental Protection Authority in Australia. You probably have something similar in the States, that orchestrate or legislate where material can be dumped. This material is a contaminant. So they're trying to utilise it back into its own industry, so that any contaminant goes back into the next batch and gets back put into a slab somewhere or into a wall that's made out of concrete. So we took this 5 gallons or 20 litres of water and slurry and aggregate and concrete mix that was partially off back to our laboratory that we were playing around with in Lismore, and set it up so that we could put probably a gallon at a time in a charging vessel. The charging vessel is then electrically stimulated through our electrics that we use, different types of electricity to electroplate or electrolyze the water. We then store that into glass jars because we're just in a laboratory. What we noted in some of the samples, the concrete is now no longer sticking to the aggregate. That's all the blue metal and the rocks and the sand that's now been completely mixed as a conglomerated mass. All of that now is separated out, and it's left a very fine film, like a waxy salted crystal structure sitting on top of the water. The next sample, lift the bottle up, there was aggregate within there in it as well, but its mass, its actual biomass, appears to have increased. Now that's a like, come on, what's happened? You've added more mass to the water. You've given it more density. That's strange. In another jar, within a week or so, there's...
Peter, didn't you say 5 times more mass?
Yes, 5 times more mass.
No, we're not talking like 12%.
Significant.
We're talking about 5 times more mass.
Wow.
Like,
correct.
nice.
By weight. Yeah, not bad. And another jar, all of the water, it didn't have any aggregate in it, but it did have like the combined mass of this concrete material, and all of the water's gone, and there's just a very light white powder left behind. Don't know what it is.
Salt?
We don't know. Doesn't taste salty.
Because
you put it in your mouth. We do a test.
Now, as you're describing this process, Ramon and I. Are you familiar with the Book of Aquarius, the Philosopher's Stone?
Is Ramon or is it me?
You.
You.
No, I'm not. Sorry.
Okay. Well, there's this just came out last year. It's called the Book of Aquarius, and a guy's gone through and done just a ton of research, putting all the old writings and the ancient writings in alchemy on the creation of the Philosopher's Stone. And the process that he actually came to is actually using, you use your own urine, but you use a distillation process where you distill it multiple times to draw the mass out of it, and it leaves a salt. And when you were talking about how it cleans it up, I just saw the whole distillation process that we're doing right there. Maybe Ramon, this is something that
time.
It
sounds like time.
It sounds exactly the same process. When you're describing you're giving water back to the life, you're basically, taking out all the negative energies out of it. And that's probably why you're left with nothing, because you dissipating all the what makes the water bad for you and giving it so much life back that it can release the toxins easily.
No, I see a tiger somewhere, Ramon. So
yeah, there's a
Fantastic.
huge tie there.
Right.
I see.
I'll try and follow it up. The fun part is that there's sitting in the bottom of the charging vessel is still some concrete. What looks like concrete. It looks like a really soft slurry. Now, I put my finger in that, and it comes out like ice cream. And this stuff should have set and been like rock.
You mean
not.
it's cold
still,
or it's soft like ice cream?
It's soft like ice cream.
Wow.
That's what's the intriguing part. And I had some personnel lined up, supposedly to do, vacuum and chemical separation, and for them to throw some dollars in. And of course, they didn't. Like they all couldn't believe what they were saying. It was just too much. And you go, like, this is an environmental hazard that now you've got a solution for. You could value add any portions of those. Where's the people? What do we do with this? We just put it on the shelf and we'll get back to it. Hang on,
See
we're
what's
talking about
happening.
it on the
This is the most bizarre story, you guys. This is like, you got this guy, and he's got these two guys working in the middle of nowhere in Australia, working on some really funky stuff, and yet, who's talking about it? Like, who knows about it? I mean, Peter, before you had that, we did an interview on Sean David Morton's show last week or so ago in Strange Universe Radio on AmericanFreedomRadio.com, and that was the first time that Peter really had an exposure on, like, out in the real world, like on some of the stuff that's so earth-shattering and important. Like in you guys, so I was really hungry to get him on here with you guys, because I just really like to start bringing this out. Why?
Well, that's not true, Mark, because I got to talk on Lars Larson's show. It was, for about a minute and a half. Really?
Like a minute and a half of, some people have.
Yeah, the guy just didn't believe what was going on and just thought, well, thanks very much. We'll get back to you,
Well,
Yeah.
Well, all due respect,
come on,
what can you? Because we've been doing it so far now for close to 2 hours, and there's still so much more to cover. What can you do in?
Yeah, well, I got.
What can you do in a minute and a half? Just give your
exactly.
name and where you were born. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Well, that was it. That was about it. But thank you very much, Lars, if you're listening. Really did appreciate it. But it's really funny about like before your fires were running, for instance, in Texas. You had a bit of a bushfire down there, or whatever, scrub fire, or whatever you call it. I started ringing and wanted to talk to people on Fox 4. I wanted to talk to people at the Cattlemen's Association. I wanted to talk to people on the fire. There's nowhere for a rainmaker to come in and drop some water on it and put it out. Look, after 2,000 homes were destroyed, you just go, we've got this machine, guys. Who's going to bring us there? We needed funding, basically, to be able to fly to America, set it up, and do it. It's just, I really don't know what else I can do. I'm talking to you guys. I need help. That's what I need. Financially, I need a lot of help.
You're talking about the one in...
I put my wife on, I put my wife on hold for a number of years, and she's now told me to piss off too. But, that's good. So we're separated, and we're probably get divorced if I could ever afford it. But it's one of those things where, I'm prepared to get off my butt and go do it and, put my own personal safety in jeopardy and my own personal comfort and family in jeopardy. But you get to a point where you just start shaking your head and say, well, what do I do? Turn this rain machine on and leave it on until sometime walks up to me and says, listen, Steve-O, how do you turn the rain off? And in Australia at the moment, they're looking at me going, can you turn this off? And we can, but we didn't turn it on to annoy a lot of people. But it is amazing when you start an event that it continues to work. So you feel like you're a little bit like the Sorcerer's Apprentice. Then you have to be really careful that you don't overdo it.
Right.
And let it get out of control. And I do take that as an ethical stand, is that, when Jack was running the machine, for instance, I'd ring him and say, listen, Jack, the Lismore flood, that is your responsibility. You got to get in there and help clean it all up. It's a situation where a weather event can get out of hand if you are involved in it. But you need to realize that because people have dammed rivers and cut down trees, they too are also involved. They're using microwave communication. They've changed the way in which nature works. They've changed the heat of the atmosphere through their exhaust on their cars. They've changed the nature of the heat in cities because they've got black bitumen. There's a whole range of different heat anomalies that are going on around the planet and different movements electrostatically. And, winds moving around buildings and all sorts of things. And it's just something that, do we have to interfere? I don't think we're interfering. I think we're encouraging moisture to come back into areas that normally it would have been in. There's only a certain amount of moisture now in the atmosphere because a lot of that moisture has been held in dams and huge reservoirs around the world on the avenue that we're going to need it in 10 years' time.
Yeah.
We need to look at that water as moving, and whenever we stop it from moving, we stop it from working within the atmosphere. So there's a whole range of who's the worst person. Is it the person who's attempting to get it to rain, or is it the person who made the road, or is it the person who made the dam? We need to have water moving. We need to move with it. We need to create an environment where, it's safe for water to be in trees and grasses and all sorts of plants. We need to encourage irrigation and farming, so that we've got food on the table, so that everybody, can at least be fed. It's a huge thing for having billions of people on the planet, and somebody's going hungry somewhere in Africa. We really do need that.
Yeah. While we're talking on that subject, Peter, could you please talk about your experience with working with the magnetic water cells with farming?
Yeah. Well,
before we go into that, I wanted to mention there's a website called GoFundMe.com.
Oh yeah,
and
you should put it on there.
Yeah, you should just put it on there, and
we should do that. That's a great idea.
You should do that, and
instead of depending on one person, you can have a lot of us can give $5, $10, $100.
All right,
it adds.
Great idea.
Do that.
Listen, you guys need to sell those bloody USB monkey sticks for $40, and out of that, you guys should throw $1 our way. Look, can we come to some agreement?
There we go.
No, Peter.
Just get. We definitely.
Look, you can slap him.
You guys set that up. Set up a GoFundMe and make sure that and send us a link and we'll post.
Yeah. I'll provide you. I'll work on that and then give you guys a link. That'd be great. That's a super idea. I appreciate it.
Fantastic thing.
I charge $40 for that idea.
Come to that USB stick. Everybody, just jump up. Put $40 in the poster room now, so that you can get that USB stick with all of those past series of wonderful shows.
Yeah.
And
the main thing is, I'm sure a lot of people are hearing this show and they're like, how do I get one? How do I get one? Because we know all this technology is out there, and I think for most of us at this point is like we want to see it in our house.
Yeah, I am like you.
And depending on somebody with a lot of money to bring it out, I don't think hopefully somebody like that will come around, but we can't depend on them.
But these people that are
Richard Branson, I've been trying to communicate with Richard Branson for a long time.
Well, all these people that are like listening to these types of radio shows, they're not going to have the kind of money that's going to be able to fund the whole project. But if they have an option like the GoFundMe where they can throw, $50, $100 towards helping to bring this stuff out, that's probably going to get you the money and get you there a lot quicker than trying to find one source that's going to bankroll it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would probably keep it more free too, Tom. It's a great idea.
There's some lake that's dried up in a town in Texas at the moment. I really need to sort of be in America and just sort of come over there and make it rain. Alleviate the problem. Also be wonderful for the drought and also for the ground. The cows would have something to chew on after a while. But getting back to what you were saying, Mark, about the magnetic cells used in agriculture, what we found, I'll try to slow down a little bit because I'm getting too excited, so that you guys can hear me. Australians talking really fast, really hard, Australian. We have a language all of our own where we get really excited. The main thing that we need to look at, or that we've looked at in agriculture, is the rapid plant growth. Now, in one particular farm that's growing kikuyu seed, the farm's in a place called Corindi in central New South Wales. They included and incorporated a magnetic cell to charge the water. Originally, I actually invented this.
Kikuyu is grass. Most people would know.
Yeah, kikuyu is grass seed. And it's a fairly an expensive grass seed, but apparently it works really well. Some of the people on golf courses or whatever are using it regularly. I'm not sure what are the end users, but looking at that industry in Australia, their crop was reduced down to about 1.8 tonnes. They've now got it. That was over 18 months, where they were just using normal irrigated water. So water out of the ground that it keeps things alive, but it doesn't allow it to flourish. There's a difference between rainwater and irrigated water. But what they found is when they put the magnetic cell on the irrigated water, is that the water started, or the plants around the irrigation ditches, for instance, all took off. And they thought, the plants really grew and seeded really nicely. The kikuyu ended up producing, instead of the 1.8 tonne over 18 months of growth, ended up producing somewhere in between 16 and 20 tonne. And then in 3 months' time, they were able to harvest another 20-odd tonne as well. And then 3 months after that, they were able to harvest it again.
Yeah, so you guys, check this out. I mean, in 18 months, normally they were running, what did you say, 1 point what ton?
1.8 tonne of seed off the farm.
That's in 18 months. And when did they normally, before you started working with the charged water, how long would it take before they would do their first harvest?
Well, that was it. That took 18 months for it to go through the flowering stage and seed up.
18 months, and they did in 3 months. They were ready to harvest with the charged water, and then they did it again in 3 months.
They went from 1.8 tonne out to 20 tonne, and their increase in harvest has gone up now in the 12 months. As I understand it, they have gone to well over 80 tonne. So they're on target for something like around about 140 tonne for the 18 months, whereas they would have only been getting 1.8 tonne.
Wow.
So it's a fairly significant increase.
And you gotta explain, Peter. So this is allowing them to work without fertilizers, without pesticides.
Right.
just charging the water with a goofy magnetic water cell.
That's not surprising at all to hear that. What is it exactly that it does to the water? Does it pull in? All right, to get a little esoteric here, is it pulling in
like your spiral graph Tom was talking about before, the spiral fields?
Okay.
We've now got the different spiral fields, either base or apex. Apex is normally known as the north field. If you've got two north fields coming together, we can interact with them and get them to fold through themselves and lock, giving us an east-west field. It's absolutely stunning what it does to water. Water just becomes so much more energized.
So if you really look at the fields that he's working with, and when you understand, like, you've got magnets that don't have two poles, they have four poles, and if you look at that whole Thrive movie that's come out, everybody who's listening to that, and that's all the rage, this whole idea of the toroidal field. Well, Peter and Joe are doing that with these magnets, these circular magnets, putting the north and the north together, south and the south together. But north and north together, as far as I can see it, is making this etheric toroidal force just with two magnets. It's really something, and they're running water through it, and it's doing crazy things.
So, well, Mark, that's not true, because we're using actually more than two magnets. But we're using clusters of magnetic fields that weave the water through figures of 8, and those figures of 8 spiral the water. But when we are using just two magnets, we're just showing what we're doing. We're not actually giving away what method we're actually doing it, but we show how we do it. We don't actually show how we align the cells, but we go ahead and do it and sell those cells. What we found is that the field effects are absolutely phenomenal. You can have one normal magnet sitting on a bench vise, for instance, and you can lift that magnet off with your little finger. But then, surprisingly, you can put a washer, a metal washer, on one end of the magnet, either south or north, and you can attach that to the bench, and now you've got to lift it off with your hand. So it's increased the power or direction of the fields to the washer, and it's drawing it up. Now, when you put another field of another magnet back in, normally it pushes away when you've got two north fields or two south fields coming together. But we've got it now where we can have two north fields come and touch on the washer. So the washer becomes, if you like, the keeper. It's referred to as a keeper for all magnetic horseshoe magnets and things like that. So that keeper now has increased its attraction where we cannot lift it off the bench. We cannot lift the magnetic field that's attracted to the vise now. We cannot physically lift it. Now, I'm only a little fellow of 150 kilos, which equates to a bit over 300 pounds, and I consider myself pretty tough. But this thing that I was lifting off with my little finger, I now can't lift off with both hands in a close lift. All I'm trying to do is I can't lift it. I'm just trying to tell you, that's how powerful the magnetic fields are now become. So it's absolutely huge.
It seems to me like this treating water like this could have amazing health benefits for humans too.
Well, let's hope so. We really need to do the test fully. Otherwise, look, I could be building something that will, leave us all in a puddle.
But I mean,
we don't know.
I think it's kind of easy to assume that if it does that for agriculture, what can it do for any animals eating the agriculture?
Yeah, well,
because it's a
those
reflection.
horns might grow out to being 10 foot long on either end.
I'm sure it can't be any worse than what Monsanto's is doing to agriculture. So.
It really does though come to, it's at the point where these guys are working in their backyard in this little workshop, these backyard workshops. There needs to be proper testing, proper research done on this. This is big stuff. It needs to be dealt with and looked at. It does take research. You do need to know what's happening, because if you know what's happening, you can dial in, you can make things go different directions, from turn radioactive material into non-radioactive material, or you can create radioactive material by going a different direction. So it needs research.
Yes.
Well, we actually won the Inventors Association award back in 1993 for this charging of agricultural nursery water. So I originally developed that, and I wasn't working with Joe at that stage, but I was working with a guy called Michael Gooch. And, Michael, because I was one of the judges, I had to stand aside while they still awarded him the prize, but because I'd been involved in it. But it was just amazing. He was the actual grower. And instead of me taking claim for it, I gave it to him. And that's what we need to do. When we're just out there, we love doing what we're doing. And that's sort of coming to America and going to Bangladesh and going to Japan and physically doing it. But we need to set it up in such a way that we've got, a cruise ship with a decent workshop so that we can go into these regions and charge water in a really beautiful manner and know that we're doing the right thing by the environment, both the marine environment and the environment for all of us, because after all, humans take up a lot of space on the planet, but there's birds and animals and, everything else has got to exist with the biology of what we have on this planet, which is Earth. Let's live with it together, guys, make it a place together,
Exactly.
That's how I see it. So thank you. And wonderful of you both to have me on your show. It's just been absolutely amazing.
Yeah, we're coming up to the hour and a half here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably a good point to finish off.
Ramon, we haven't talked about this off the air, and if you oppose vehemently, I can cut this out of this, and we'll pretend it never happened. But I think I want to release this outside of the member section, and so everybody has access to this information, because this is just too important to even restrict it for our greedy little needs,
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks, Tom. I really appreciate that. That's,
I would agree with that.
Yeah, this is just.
Thank you, Ramon.
There's too much here to put it behind any doors. So.
Yeah, appreciate that, guys, and let's see if we can draw in some funds to put your way. I would like to, I'd like to honor that decision. As we draw in some funds for something, it'd be really nice to give you guys some back, because this is important. I had the same feeling, Tom, and I'm working really hard to get Peter out there into the public and to get the right people listening to what he can do and hearing him. There's just a bit of work. What we need is a situation where Peter can direct people to do experiments, and they go out and they start working on stuff, and he tells them where to go, gives them ideas where to go, start working on things.
I've been telling them where to go for years.
He does. He tells me where to go. He actually tells me where to go sometimes. But really, it's a great opportunity. Let's make some special things happen. Love to honor you guys, though. I really appreciate this interview and appreciate your time, Peter. Thanks, you guys. Really glad to be a part of this.
Yeah, I mean,
Thank you.
This information is not important. It's crucial at this moment in our history. It's very crucial. It's life. It's literally life or death.
Elizabeth brought up a good point to me. Have you guys looked into organizations like Greenpeace or anything like that?
They're very hard to look into. Who do you talk to? You know, it's a lot like, you know, there's a connection, but you've got to go by somebody else who makes a decision for everybody else. It really, you know, we just need to be, you know, free and easy, get out there and go do it.
Yeah.
If we're within an organisation, then you've got, you know, a directors meeting and you've got this happening and something else, and there's another priority instead of just going and doing it. You know, like we went, my opposition, the Australian Rain Corporation, were funded by the federal government to the tune of $2 million. I won't tell you the exact figure, but it was crazy. But it's what they needed. And they ended up hearing about what we were doing. They gave us $3,000 to go and experiment. And I said to them, well, I said, do you mind if we help put out the Victorian bushfires? And they were just stunned. So I drove all the way down from my place down through New South Wales out to Victoria, set up at Mildura and turned the machine on, and we had the bushfires out within about 6 hours.
Wow.
That's not too bad, you know. I mean, and I said, you'll know it's us because we'll put snow on the mountain. Well, snow fell on the mountain, and we were probably about 1,000 or somewhere around about 600 miles from the location of the fires. So we were able to beam it in straight over the top of them and put it all out. But we just say thank you and get out of the way, and you know, nobody in Australia would have any idea that we were out doing it apart from people from the Australian Rain Corporation. Oh, and by the way, they then told me that they wanted it to rain in Menindee Lakes, which was to the north of me. So I then had to drive above it. So I drove all the way up to Burke, set up the machine, and their forecaster was telling me about this cyclone that was off the coast and coming into Queensland. I said to him, no, we'll just push it away. And he goes, yeah, you can't do that. I said, well, what won't it do? He said, it won't go north. I said, well, watch this. So we pushed it north and then we pushed it away so that it didn't devastate Queensland. But they still needed rain. But it was just amazing. Oh, by the way, it rained in Menindee Lakes within, I think, about 6 hours of us getting there. But, you know, there was a lack of communication. When you travel in Australia, you can only get reception to phones generally within, 5 or 10 kilometres or, 10 miles of a town. The radio towers don't carry the frequency enough. And the spaces in between towns are hundreds of kilometres or, 70 or 80 miles. You're looking at, being off the air for a long time in between travelling, and especially through desert regions, as I was. So it was a lot of fun, and, they put timelines on us, and we're trying to do all sorts of stuff to say that it wasn't us, but, thanks, Jay, for the $3,000. Really appreciate your money, and we were pleased that we were able to help, It's like coming and making it rain in Squaw Valley, and, so that people can enjoy the snow, enjoy the skiing. A friend of ours, Megan Castron, she was actually holidaying in Vale, and I saw on Facebook that she was, they were only skiing on man-made snow. So I said to her, I'll put the money in the account, Megan, and we'll drop some on you. Overnight, they got, probably 4 inches of snow or something. So she put it all down to their wonderful prayer meeting. And I think it's the prayers that did it. We certainly heard them and assisted. But that's what it's all about. It's just getting in there and doing it as it's needed, not taking the credit for it a lot of the times. Because after all, somewhere in America, somebody would want to sue you for either making it rain or not making it rain,
Right.
We are aware of that. So thank you.
Right. Well, I want to thank you both of you guys for being here. This is good stuff. Here we are. We're in 2012, and things are happening, and the consciousness of the planet is raising. And this type of thing is going to be part of the new paradigm that we're moving into. These sacred science technologies are going to have to come to the surface, or we will not make it. And I see them coming to the surface, and I am full of optimism for our future. So, thank you very much.
Very wise man.
Yeah,
very
it's
much,
thanks to
gentlemen.
guys like you. It's thanks to people like you who are making that possible. You guys are getting the audiences together. You have people trusting you and wanting to hear who you're going to interview, and that makes it possible for somebody to come and bring their message to the world in a different way. It's like a way that they couldn't otherwise, and I really appreciate you guys for doing what you're doing.
And Mark, you've done a wonderful job too. Thank you. And Ramon, lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too. And thank you guys. I mean, this, like I said before, this is really important.
Okay, well, I want to thank everybody for listening. All our members, thank you very much, and all of you non-members who are listening to this little special bonus that we put out there. I would like to encourage you to pop over to www.the100thmonkeyradio.com and consider being a member. Help support the alternative media. And
alrighty, I got to go.
Check out all the other stuff we got going, guys. And we love you. And condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance.
And the love you deny is the pain you carry.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Outcry for people who want a better planet, and there are powers that be that let their people panic. Look at the Gulf of Japan, could they have really planned it? Heading for the iceberg like the Titanic. Atlantic mystery, Atlantis white for mystery. The truth about the pyramids in ancient Mayan prophecy. Space odyssey, look into the anomalies, and you will find suppression of free energy technology. A false democracy born out of a monopoly. Sacred knowledge robbery like the towers they toppling. No stopping free. Jade brain, Vito C. Coming from the inner me. Free energy. The oil's running dry. Our money's burning out. Solar panels on the roof of the White House. Hey! We bringing on some real change. Water catchment system. We collecting rain.
Time to gather round. The moment's now. How will it all turn out? And from the crowd, be the one who's the meditation. Time for free energy.
Tesla perceived the earth as a conductor of acoustical resonance, and still his presence lives in the heart of visionary inventions. Over 5,000 patents censored.
Researching zero-point energy, trying to get through delirium. The unified field theory of Nassim Harriman, and every day we carry in the burden of our past. Water fuel cars, we no longer need the gas. So many solutions, right here in your face. Raw earth energy, create what rejuvenates. Green walls and green roofs, grow plants on everything. Magnetic movements, don't need gas for anything. Space rockets, doing our own research, paying out of pocket. Bike-powered stages, you pedal in our rocket. Fully access to techie knowledge. Green power over big profit. You can't stop it.
Ever since what the wars are fought for, ever dreamed that the world could be more. I spend my life by us, one chance to do it together. Ever since what the wars are fought for, ever dreamed that the world could be more. I spend my life by now, one day we could do it together.
Renaissance, third industrial revolution. Invention is the language of a worldwide solution. The body electromagnetic, plasma arc reactor, stubble field, Kowski frost. Free the knowledge lost.
Some people wait for 2012 to watch the Earth shift, but in New Mexico they out there building Earth ships. We got the language wrong, I got a new twist. The lifting of the veil, that's the true apocalypse.
Some see free energy as the enemy, but my genetic memory remembering that could never be. Thoughts float in the anti-gravity. A cubic foot of space can fuel the whole world annually.
You can choose to love or hate, revolt, or maybe meditating. Every day we demonstrate so we can finally get it straight. Peace worldwide is the anthem that we celebrate. Free energy like the end of the movie Saint.
Time to gather round, the moment's now.